From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Friday morning. It's 5:30. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thanks for kicking off the weekend with us. Dan Miller's here to give us that forecast. We can't wait to hear about. What's going on?
Well, we had some rain yesterday. Not so much in Billings, but hang in there. We have a chance to see more rain today. We just don't want to see that severe weather. Unfortunately, that's something we may be eyeballing today off to the east, and we'll take a look at that with the main forecast coming up. We're dealing still with some surface smoke this morning. Some good news, we're expecting it to maybe be lighter today. The air quality won't be perfect, but it won't be as bad as it's been the last several days. 70 right now at the airport, humidity near 50%, winds out of the west at about 10 miles an hour. Take a look at temperatures across the board right now. 65 in Livingston, where we saw some gusts up to about 60 miles an hour yesterday. Gardner at 55, where we're seeing a little bit of light rain. 66 in Broadview, 67 in Huntley, down in Sheridan 77, where we're seeing some rain right now. In fact, we're going to see maybe several rounds of rain as we go along today as you take a look there. Highs today in the 70s and 80s, so we are getting cooler because of a cold front, and that's cold front number one. The second cold front really going to cool us down. I'll tell you when that's going to hit coming up. Today's high getting up to about 85, so just a little bit below average. We've got the cloud cover, we've got rain this morning and then some rain later this afternoon, and then off to our east the possibility of seeing some severe weather. What exactly are we talking about in terms of severe conditions? I'll let you know about that with the main forecast straight ahead.
Well, the rain gets a hip hip hooray and the severe a boo. So
I know,
happens, right?
And get ready for a cool down. It may be brief, but it'll be nice.
Yay, all right, cool. Looking forward to it, Miller. Thank you so much. I'll get on to the news. Our top story this Friday, the Senate could vote on the much discussed $1 trillion infrastructure bill as soon as tomorrow. But at least one Montana senator will not support it. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says work still needs to be done to finalize amendments on the bill that would require at least 60 votes to pass. Meanwhile, the Congressional Budget Office released a report saying the bill would add $256 billion to the deficit over 10 years. That fact enraged Montana Senator Steve Daines, who says he'll be voting no on the massive proposal. Daines called that impact on the deficit absolutely unacceptable at a time when inflation is already increasing. Supporters of the bipartisan measure, including Montana Democrat John Tester, say the CBO score was unexpected and claims it doesn't consider all the revenue that's included by supporters. Tester says infrastructure spending is badly needed and the bill has almost $3 billion for Montana highway construction and maintenance over the next 5 years. In Wildfire Watch, Governor Greg Gianforte is praising the Polson community for helping their neighbors displaced by the Boulder 2700 fire. The governor toured the area yesterday and got a first-hand look at the damage. More than a dozen homes have been destroyed in the fire, which is still growing. Nearly 500,000 acres have burned in Montana this year. But Governor Gianforte believes the residents of the state are showing their determination in a tough time.
This is a difficult period for Montana. I know Montana is resilient, know that we're praying for them, and that we're going to get through this. I am just so impressed with the leadership we have from our firefighting community. County resources, tribal resources, state resources, federal resources, they're all working together. We have great collaboration, but we'll get through this.
The fire forced 500 people to evacuate last weekend, but 450 have been allowed to return to their homes. Crews are still working to stop the flames as wind conditions made for a difficult firefight on Thursday. The state's wildfires have impacted just about everyone, even Montana's wildlife. MTN's Andy Curtis has more on the role the flames and smoky skies are playing heading into an important time for the state's hunters.
Everyone in the state is dealing with the wildfires or droughts in one way or another. But what do these current conditions mean for our big game animal population and the upcoming hunting season? The short answer is, it's complicated. That's because mild winters that result in the fire seasons like the one we're dealing with right now also mean higher winter survival rates for our deer, elk, moose, and pronghorn. Fires also lead to new growth and nutrition, which benefits our wildlife. But it's obviously not all positive.
Right now, with the dry summer, it makes it really difficult from a nutrition standpoint, trying to get them get the food that they need. And so we start to see, especially with the young, their survival rates may drop off. they become more susceptible to predation. Their malnutrition really getting them ready for this upcoming winter makes it really harder for them to make through it.
And it turns out the biggest threat to wildlife isn't the danger of the fire itself, but what it causes.
We don't typically see a lot of direct mortality loss as a result of those fires. We certainly displace wildlife, and then they wind up competing with other wildlife that's already exists in other situations, other conditions.
And as Brian reminded me, even with the early fire season raging on right now, things aren't exactly doom and gloom for our wildlife or upcoming hunting season.
The adults typically cope. They figure out how to adjust. We may see some added mortality for some of the young, especially coming up if we have a difficult winter. But at the same time, this is not something new for wildlife. They do address those kinds of situations, and after the fires are over, a lot of times we have really good recovery, and it can be a real benefit to wildlife.
Brian added that as of right now, hunters shouldn't expect too many changes this upcoming fall. But wildlife populations always fluctuate, so it's important to double check those FWP regulations on the FWP website. To make it easy, we've got a link to that in this story on our website. Reporting from Helena, Andy Curtis, MTN News.
Now we go to Carbon County, where commissioners met just days after voters turned down a ballot measure to construct a new jail. They say there is no plan B, and the sheriff's office will continue driving inmates to detention facilities in Yellowstone and Gallatin County. Citizens overwhelmingly voted against the $19 million bond to build a new jail and the nearly $2 million mill levy for operation and maintenance.
We put this initiative forth because we had to ask the question on how our constituents want to spend their tax dollars. I think that our constituents and our residents gave it a lot of thought. There was a lot of emotion around the issue. There hasn't been a detention facility available in Carbon County right now for over 20 years. But we had to ask because, like most small counties in Montana, we're spending a lot of money to detain inmates, and it's not a problem that's going to go away.
Commissioners say the issue is finished and a decision will have to be made on the property the county already purchased southeast of Joliet. Turning to energy news, President Joe Biden's moratorium on new oil and gas leases on federal land has already cost the state of North Dakota billions of dollars. Now, as that moratorium stretches into its 8th month, North Dakota officials are asking a federal judge to order the Interior Department to resume its quarterly lease sales. Last month, the North Dakota Attorney General sued Interior Secretary Deborah Haaland over canceled lease sales this past March and June. State officials contend canceling those sales dried up as much as $86 million in potential royalties. In western North Dakota alone, nearly 240 potential oil-bearing sections of land that were already for auction are now on hold. Experts estimate those pieces of land or tracts represent as many as 1,000 oil wells and nearly $5 billion in future value to the state. North Dakota's lawsuit asked the court to set a specific date for restarting the lease sales and would also prohibit future moratoriums. While no hearing date has been set, the state's Mineral Resources Director says North Dakota is looking forward to its day in court. Well, just yesterday, President Biden made another move that isn't sitting well with the oil and gas industry. The administration is setting new goals for stricter fuel efficiency standards. As CBS's Ben Tracy reports, the White House believes it will give the electric car industry a boost.
President Biden took a quick spin in an electric Jeep outside the White House as part of his push to speed up the production of e-powered vehicles.
We have a playbook and it's going to work. Today, I'm announcing steps we're taking to set a new pace for electric vehicles.
The president signed an executive order that says half of all new vehicles sold in the U.S. should be electric by 2030. Right now, EVs make up just 2% of new car sales. The auto industry says it aspires to reach 40 to 50% EV sales, but that is not binding.
When the automakers talk about their EV sales, they frame it as aspirations, as goals. Do you believe they're going to do what they say they may do?
You know, we hope that they will, and we will hold them accountable. We know that this is where the technology is headed.
EPA Administrator Michael Regan is also releasing stricter new efficiency standards for cars and trucks, claiming it will save American drivers as much as $250 billion in fuel by 2050 and prevent 2.2 billion tons of carbon pollution. Some environmental groups wanted the administration to be bolder. The new regulations are essentially a return to the Obama administration standards undone by President Trump.
I'm disappointed that the president who says global warming is an existential threat isn't putting out a rule that is up to the challenge of that threat.
But the White House believes the changes will accelerate the move to green energy. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Washington.
Those with the EPA suggest transportation is the single largest source of planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S. Today, the 81st annual Sturgis Motorcycle Rally kicks off in South Dakota. More than 700,000 people will fill the streets, and that's an increase of 200,000 people from last year's event. The motorcycle rally is expected to generate $800 million in revenue. Apple announced plans to crack down on child sex abuse. The tech company plans to scan iPhones for images of child pornography before they're uploaded to the iCloud. The tool Apple will use is called Neutral Match. If it finds a questionable image, it will be reviewed by a human. If it's confirmed to be child pornography, the user's account will be disabled, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children will be notified. Apple also plans to scan users' encrypted messages for sexually explicit content. Child protection groups support the idea. Opponents argue it could be used by governments to spy on citizens. Now for the latest on the pandemic, variants, and specifically the Delta variant, are playing a major role in the uptick in COVID-19 cases in Montana. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has more.
Montana leaders sequence COVID samples to determine what variant they come from at several locations, including here at the Public Health Laboratory in Helena. While they can't test every sample, the results they have seen make clear that Delta is becoming the most common variant in the state.
You know, it's the dominant strain around the U.S. now as well, so we were expecting that this might come.
The Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services released a new report this week. In the most recent results, 87% of samples tested were from the Delta variant. Public health leaders say it appears that variant is spread more easily than other COVID strains. Variants in general remain a concern for DPHHS. The report says of COVID-related hospitalizations and deaths in the last 8 weeks, all the cases that were sequenced came from variants. Leaders say that's another reason to encourage people to get vaccinated.
The risk of a genetic change happens every time a virus is transmitted from one person to another. So the more circulation we see, the more chances that there could be some mutation that could cause a new variant. So we really do want to try to limit our number of new cases and limit transmission so that we reduce the risk of any changes in this virus.
The numbers of new COVID cases and hospitalizations have been going up in the last few weeks. Leaders believe that may be the reason behind a recent increase in the number of people getting the vaccine. Last week, just over 4,500 Montanans got their first shot, up 18% from the week before. DPHHS says among people hospitalized for COVID-related illness in the last 8 weeks, almost 90% weren't vaccinated.
We feel that vaccination is our best tool against COVID.
The state lab is able to test 150 samples a week for variants, and the University of Montana and Montana State University can also do the sequencing. But not every sample contains enough genetic material to determine what variant it comes from. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. California's largest wildfire continues to spread this morning, and it has consumed yet another small town. CBS's Bradley Blackburn reports on how fire crews are fighting to stop it.
The Dixie Fire is destroying everything in its path in Northern California. The small community of Canyon Dam was swallowed by flames Thursday. Wind pushing the fire up dry timber as 5,000 firefighters try to control the blaze.
I've been fighting fire for almost 25 years, and this is the most extreme fire behavior that I've ever been a part of.
The Dixie Fire is one of the largest in California's history, burning more than 500 square miles. That's an area bigger than Los Angeles.
I just can't see it, not being here.
The town of Chester is fully evacuated with the fire approaching. 2,000 residents know they may never see their homes again, including mother of 3 Dawn Rocha, who packed up what she could and left.
We'll be okay. They'll get new toys and everything, but it's just memories.
Not far away in Greenville, residents are seeing Dixie's destruction. The historic mountain town reduced to ashes. Businesses, the library, the post office, and over 100 homes burned to the ground.
There's no reason for us to lose our town.
Rhonda Reams evacuated Greenville with her partner and her dog. They have no home to return to.
We stood outside of the property yesterday and watched the trees go up.
As wildfires rage up and down the state, officials say too many are refusing to evacuate.
We have firefighters that are getting guns pulled out on them because people don't want to evacuate.
Tensions high as the danger grows. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News.
Across the U.S., 100 large fires are burning and have consumed almost 2 million acres. Officials say just 2 of them are contained.